Okay, we are recording in progress. Thank you, Zoom. And we are live. Hello and welcome, Portal to Ascension community. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to this broadcast. Let's turn that down there. Okay, awesome. My name is Raji from houseofraji.com, and I just joined the PTA team, and I'm really excited to be with you guys here today. I'm a professional video journalist born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and I'm also a spiritual empowerment coach. So you may be seeing me more a little bit on these broadcasts in the coming months, and I hope to connect and support this beautiful community of evolving souls to the best and highest of my abilities. So thank you for having me. Now, today, so excited. Today, we're going to be doing a one-on-one interview with a best-selling author and an award-winning expert in the psychic and paranormal realms. John Russell is an internationally known professional psychic for almost half a century. Working with clients from around the world, he's also been featured as a guest on many popular radio shows. And recently, he filmed a TV pilot for the History Channel in which he psychically explored the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. He's authored 2 books, the first one being Riding with Ghosts, Angels and the Spirits of the Dead, and A Knock in the Attic, True Ghost Stories and Other Spine-Chilling Paranormal Adventures. When he's not chasing ghosts around the country on his motorcycle, John enjoys reading, painting, making photographs, gardening, target shooting, and fancies himself a fair chess player. Awesome. Let's get John in here. John, how are you? I was playing chess this morning. I'm hoping you can give me some pointers.
Hi, Raji. It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited to be here. I don't know, like I was telling you, I've got a buddy of mine that plays chess at a very high level, and every great now and then I'll beat him, but most of the time he trounces me. And I just try and have fun with it. It's a pleasant distraction from my work, so I use it that way, and it's a lot of fun. It's enjoyable.
And how about the metaphor for life, right? Chess and life. It's a good one.
Exactly.
So, John, where in the world are you joining us from?
I'm in Florida.
You're in Florida. Okay, cool.
Right.
I'm currently in Tulum, Mexico. So it's nice. We got this
neat.
cross. Yes. Okay, so let's just jump right in. I'm super curious to talk to you about a whole array of topics, but I'd love to start with, if you could tell us a little bit about how you got into this line of work. And did you always know like this was your path?
Well, from an early age, I did. I was 5 years old when this started. And I was absolutely, totally sound asleep in my room. And I woke up absolutely wide awake just instantly with no grogginess, no sleepiness. And I thought that was very strange and I couldn't figure it out. And I thought, well, maybe a noise happened outside that woke me up. And so I laid there and I listened, didn't hear anything. And my parents had left a nightlight on in the bathroom down the hallway. So if I had to get up during the night, I'd have light, and my bedroom door was open. And so I raised up on my elbows just to kind of look around my room and try and figure out what had happened. And as I looked out my open bedroom door and looked down the hallway, around one of the doorways in the hallway, this elderly Black gentleman was staring at me, peeking around the doorway, staring at me.
Wow.
And I screamed bloody murder because my family was white. I don't think we even knew anyone Black. My presumption was that this was an unknown person that had entered the house. We had an intruder.
Right.
So after I screamed, he walked around the doorway into the hallway, started walking toward my bed, started walking toward me. And his eyes were locked with mine. He never looked away. And his look was not menacing at all. It was kind of bemused, like, why is this poor white child screaming his head off? Doesn't he know why I'm here? And he was every bit as solid as you or I. He wasn't translucent. He wasn't transparent. He wasn't misty. He was every bit as solid as you or I. And I knew he was elderly because he had close cropped white hair and he had a white mustache. And I can tell you the clothes he had on. He had a red flannel shirt and he had khaki pants, black shoes, and a black belt. Wow. And as he got closer, I screamed bloody murder again. My parents started to come running. And when they did, he began to disappear until he became translucent, transparent, and then vanished. And about that time, my parents at the bedroom, they're, what's the matter? What's the matter? I said, there's somebody in the house. Somebody's in the house. And my mother was holding me, trying to console me. I was crying and screaming. And And they were trying to tell me it was just a nightmare. I saw something on TV that set me off or whatever. It was just a bad dream. And I said, no, because I knew I wasn't asleep. I knew I was wide awake. And I knew I had seen this guy in the flesh walk down the hallway and then disappear. And so my fright was so real that my father actually went through the house and he checked all the doors and windows. He looked under the beds. He looked in the closets. Totally. And it's like, there's nobody here. And I knew that there had been somebody there. And then it dawned on me, okay, I've seen my first ghost. And what I couldn't reconcile at that moment was, why had he come? Why did he show up and then disappear? Why didn't he let my parents see him? Was he going to come back? Was he going to want to talk to me? Was he going to want me to do something scary? And so they're trying to get me to go back to sleep. And I'm like, sleep? What sleep? And so finally I did. And after that experience, for about the next several days or several weeks, I spent my life looking over my shoulder and dreading going to sleep, because when's this going to come back? And somewhere along the way, and I couldn't have described it that way as a child, but somewhere along the way, I had this epiphany, because these paranormal events began to occur in my life on the physical realm, not things that I experienced during sleep or dreams, or that I meditated or daydreamed or hallucinated or envisioned. These were actual physical happenings that were caused by the spiritual realm, others on the other side. And a lot of times my parents witnessed them, friends witnessed them. And this epiphany occurred, and it was like, oh, that's why this guy came, was to open up the portal to these experiences. And I didn't know why they were important, but I realized at some level that they had to be important in my life, or they wouldn't be occurring. Wow. And then after that, and up to my adulthood, I have never been frightened of anything again, any experience again, ever. So that was the only time that anything ever scared me. And then what drew me into the line of work of being a professional psychic was, after that occurred, I was, as a byproduct of that, I guess, or maybe as an extension of that portal opening, my psychic gift developed. And the way that I learned that was, I was out in the backyard. I was between 5 and 6, maybe around 6. It was shortly after this event had happened. And I had a toy, and I was running around the backyard playing with my toy. And this car pulled in the driveway, and there were people that I didn't know. So I ran in the house to get my parents, and I said, this car's just come to the driveway. There's some people here. I don't know who they are. They said, okay, we'll come out and check. So they came out, and I said, oh, those are friends of ours. And I'd never met them, so I didn't know. So I was like, oh, okay. So they got out of the car, and they're standing on the sidewalk talking with my parents, and I'm goofing around with my toy. And I came up and just stood there among the adults and stared up at them. And I looked at the people, and I said, you've just been on vacation. And I said, you drove that car that's in the driveway, and you took 2 kids with you. You have 2 kids. They're not with you today, but you took 2 kids with you on the vacation, and you stayed at this hotel that looked like this, painted this color, had this many stories. And there were these trees out front that looked like this, and they were spaced at these regular intervals. And then around back, there was a swimming pool area, and it was painted this color, and it looked like this. Well, the guy was looking at me and my parents, and kind of at his wife, kind of bemused, kind of like, what in the world? That he couldn't even do anything. And his wife, I'll never forget, she was bug-eyed and slack-jawed. She was staring at me like I had cobras coming out of my ears, literally. And she looked at my mother, and she said, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my mother said, oh, kids and their imaginations. And she goes, imagination? No. She said, how the hell could he possibly know that? And my mother and father were kind of like, well, what do you mean? And she goes, that's what we came over to tell you, was about the vacation that we just took. And we drove our car. We took our 2 kids. The hotel we stayed in is exactly like John described. How the hell could he possibly know that? How is that possible? And my mother just said, go play, John. And I'm like, okay, nice to meet you folks. And I ran off.
Bye.
And I scared them so bad they never came to visit my parents again. So that's when I discovered that I could see into people's lives. I could tell where they had been. I could discern their feelings, their thoughts, their emotions. I could tell what was going on around them in their lives. And then that extrapolated into discovering that I could accurately predict their futures, and that would come true. It would happen. And so that was led into my just saying, okay, something's going on here I have to deal with. I have to develop. And by the time I hit the age of 11, I was reading. I was a voracious reader from a young kid. And I began to read everything I could find on psychology, parapsychology, religion, the supernatural, the psychic realm, everything that I could find, everything that I could study, because I had a burning desire to do two things. I wanted to find out what worked and what didn't, and I wanted to find out how I could get better.
Where did religion play at this point? Like, where did you grow up with a religion or no?
Yeah, I grew up a Presbyterian. And
Okay.
it was really interesting because people say, oh, the psychic realm, the paranormal realm, we still have a ton of people that say, oh, that's demonic, it's evil, it's satanic or whatever. And so back then, especially, it's a tiny bit better today, but not much. Yeah. But back then, when I was growing up, in the 60s and 70s, even into the 80s, it was something that was just totally, completely taboo. Yeah. So, but people always say, well, how could you be religious and have this go on? Well, there was no difficulty there. We went to church, regularly. We prayed before our meals. We wore crosses. We read our Bibles. We celebrated Christmas and everything in a Christian way, and believed in Jesus. Had the obligatory pictures of Jesus around. And we did seances, and we had paranormal experiences and ghostly visitations and everything else. One did not counteract the other, in other words.
Wow.
And that's cool. It was really interesting, as I write about in my second book. My mother actually taught an adult Sunday school class at our Presbyterian church. And she said one day, she was like, she said she just closed the lesson book and went, does anybody really believe in any of this, or is it relevant to anybody? Does it work? Does it make sense for anybody? And, at first everybody's like, oh my God. Yeah. But then as people begin to get comfortable with the concept of discussing the reality of their experiences, they all agree that, no, it really doesn't work, and it really doesn't seem relevant. Yeah. And at that time, Uri Geller was coming into popularity down the road, and all those types of things were happening. And so there was a lot of that out there, Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. That book came out, and the talk shows at the time.
Wow. That's so refreshing to hear, because so many people had the experience of going to Sunday school, and, when they would ask questions, they would get in a lot of trouble, or they would just leave, or their parents would get pissed off or something. So your parents actually sounded like very accepting and of your gifts right off the bat. And it was quite normal in a way.
Well, my mother was. My father was kind of a closet believer. Because he was a rough and tough old guy. He had been a stock farmer, and my family owned a bar, and he was his own bouncer for the bar. So he was a rough and tumble kind of guy, handling himself with his fist. But the paranormal scared him because it was something that he had no control over. He couldn't grab it and fight it. It manifested as it pleased. It didn't obey his whims, and so that scared him.
Right. So that brings, so there's so many things I want to ask you right now, but okay, let's start with, when those people came and you just, I'm going to say, dropped in with them, what is it? Do you just see images? Do you feel things? Do you hear, like, is it all the senses that are being played on in a way for you?
It's at times it incorporates all of them. At times the emphasis is on other things. I see like visions mostly in my mind's eye, but sometimes with my physical eyes. I will hear things sometimes in my inner ears, sometimes outside audibly. Sometimes I'll hear spoken language, be told things in that manner, aromas. There's just a wide variety of things that come, sometimes physical sensations. Yeah. But the best description I can give you, and it's not a very good one, I've been asked this a jillion times, and the best description I can give you is that, how do you know when you tell somebody something? It's like, okay, when you go to school, you learn that 2 + 2 = 4. You learn that's a fact, and you learn you can take that fact anywhere in the world, and everybody accepts that 2 + 2 = 4. And so that becomes a knowing in your life. It's a certainty that you have. It's a knowing. And when I'm reading for people and the information is given to me from the other side, it comes to me as that knowing. It drops into me like this fact that I've known all my life, and as a certainty, as a knowing. And then I can take it to the people and say, look, you can take this to the bank as an absolute truth. And that's some inexact way to describe it, but the best way I can describe it. But it kind of comes as a knowing and as a certainty, and that's regardless of what methodology I may be using.
Cool. Thank you. Now talk to me about like these unseen forces, going back to your dad and, you know, that feeling out of control, you know, like that's pretty normal for a lot of people. They get pretty afraid because they can't control it. They can't see it, you know, so it freaks them out. So what's something that's like really important that we should remember when thinking about these unseen forces?
Well, I think the primary thing to learn here, Raji, is that our knee-jerk reaction to the paranormal is always fear, because we've been raised, especially if you've been raised from a Christian perspective, anything outside the purview of the church is demonic, satanic, evil, whatever. And most people have that default setting that they fall back to whenever they experience something supernormal or supernatural. If they don't have that fear or that religious training ingrained, then it's just a fear response, because we've been taught all our entire lives that nothing like that exists, nothing like that's possible, it doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden it does happen. So it scares them because they have no foundation for it. They have no basis of learning for it. They have no way to react to it. They don't know what to do. And so that's the problem that people face. And, you know, we have a short amount of time, so I have to give you the Band-Aid answer here.
Okay.
And I've been a professional psychic for over 50 years. I've read for people in over 40 countries, including India, by the way.
Nice.
And I've had way over 1,000 paranormal experiences. I've done a ton of paranormal investigations. I've not run across the exorcist example of the demon or the possessed person or anything like that.
Yep.
I've not been threatened. I've not been bitten. I've not been scratched. I've not been pushed downstairs. Yep. There's a lot of things that happen that people misinterpret, misconstrue. And there's a lot of things that people are taught. And so that's their default reaction when they encounter something. They go back to, it has to be dangerous. It has to be evil. Why is it occurring? It's got to be threatening me. And that's simply not the case. The overwhelming amount of experiences that I've had have all been positive, have all been good, have literally been life-saving several times.
Wow.
And I think that's the message that I want to get out to people. And the more podcasts I do, I've been interviewed over 100 times in the past year and a half.
Yeah.
And the more podcasts that I do and the more people that I talk with, I find out more and more that the overwhelming majority of people do experience more positive experiences than negative ones. Yeah. And that people are thankful, that they're glad that somebody's coming out and saying, hey, there's not a demon behind every bush. This is not something that you have to fear. This is something that can benefit your life and enhance your life if you approach it properly, if you approach it with respect, and if you do it the right way. And so that's the message I'm trying to get across to everybody now, and say, look, this is not anything to be feared. This is a normal part of existing on this planet. And by learning how to interact with this, you can make your life a whole lot better. You can improve your life. And then by extension, you can learn how to help other people improve their lives as well.
Because at the end of the day, there's really nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
But so I can only say that because I have gone through my own kind of like cycle. Like I was super, super afraid. Like if I ever felt like a presence, like it's scared the crap out of me. But I loved horror movies. I loved paranormal, everything. And then I guess you just kind of, as you're on the spiritual path, and you start recognizing there really is no good, bad, right, wrong. They're of the same essence.
You grow out of the fear.
You can grow out of the fear. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I think that for most people, it simply has to become an understanding that, well, I'll give you a couple of examples. Okay. I used to do a lot of psychic fairs when I was young. And at one fair, I had my tarot cards spread out there while I was waiting for my next client. And this lady walked by and she went, oh my God, tarot cards. Ooh, and almost started running. And I said, hey, come here. Wait a minute. Come here. What is all this nonsense about? And she goes, oh my God, she said, my husband and I, a long time ago, we went to this old woman, said she was an old gypsy woman, and she read the tarot cards, and she saw all these terrible things around us and all these terrible things about to happen, and on and on and on. And I said, stop. I said, think back. Did any single one of those things that she saw manifest, did any single thing that she predicted come true? And she stopped, and it was like somebody had smacked her in the head with a 2x4. And she said, well, no, it didn't. And I said, see, all these years, you've carried this fear because of some false something that somebody told you, and some superstition, some fear they put in your head that never even came true, never even came to pass, but you never even stopped to analyze that. Right. And by stopping to understand that, oh my God, none of that ever happened, none of that ever came true, that gave her the basis to move forward without fear, and to learn that, okay, hey, you know, there's a lot of phonies out there. There's a lot of people going to tell you a lot of negative things. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Another instance I can give you about learning and outgrowing the fear. When I was shooting the pilot for the History Channel, this lady came over to me and she said, when you get a chance between takes, I've got to talk to you. I've got to talk to you. This ghost tried to kill me. I said, no ghost tried to kill you. She goes, yes, this ghost tried to kill me. I was like, okay, we'll talk. So we got a break in the filming. We went off into another room to be private. And she said, I was standing there at I think she said in the sink, doing something in the kitchen. And she said, the cupboard door opened by itself. This plate flew out of the cupboard by itself, flew across the room and hit the wall and shattered into pieces right by me. This ghost tried to kill me. I said, no, if the ghost tried to kill you, you'd be dead. I said, the ghost didn't try and kill you. The ghost wasn't even trying to hurt you. I said, what I can tune into psychically and tell you right now real quick is that the other side, and specific people on the other side, have been trying to manifest themselves to you and get through to you and guide you and lead you and get you to pay attention to your intuition for some time now. And you keep pushing it away and ignoring it. And I said, finally, they've reached the point of frustration where it's like, ignore this. You can't ignore this manifestation. And I said, that's all it is. There's no harm there. There's frustration there, and they're getting your attention. And I said, what you have to do now, and then I told her how to connect with that in a positive way and understand that they're trying to get through, and so on and so forth. So, as you know, there's lots of opportunities there to help people to overcome those fears by understanding why they're wrong in the first place. Right. And then, you know, how you grow from there, how you learn from there and connect with the realm of spirit.
So do you subscribe to the idea that there are dark forces and light forces?
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, you can't just, you look at the world we're in and there's evil people, there's bad people. Right. And if you extrapolate that, you say, well, everything in the realm of spirit can't be, you know, all roses and light. And I don't think it is, but I think that it's been so overhyped that people automatically go to that default position of anything that happens paranormally as evil or demonic or as something to be suspect. Right. And it amazes me, the older I've gotten, you know, I've been around this game a long, long time now. I've been around the block a few times. I'm 68 now. And it's come to my attention that people will take the movie The Exorcist and literally believe that that's real life, that they will take their instruction and teaching and perception of spiritual realms from that movie or other movies, and people will really take that to heart. It's just like,
well, because it's a true story that, you know, it says before the film starts, based off a true story.
Based off a true story. And of course, none of it is, you know. And it's like they look at the so-called ghost hunters on TV, and I've talked to the talent, the on-air talent, with some of these major productions, and I've talked to the production people on these major productions, and they have both told me that on many of these shows they fake things. The production team will say, hey, can you work up a cry here, or can you scream and run out of the room, you know, can you do that type of thing? And then I get really tickled at the ones that are supposed to be ghost hunters, and they curse the spirits and yell at the spirits and manifest yourself. And they do, and then they scream and run like little girls. It's like, dude, isn't that what you're there for? You know, I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous. So people look at that and they get the idea that that's what the spiritual realm is really like. And every show you go on, it became popular for a while. They had a demonologist. Everything was a demon. Everything was demon inspired. Everything was demon manifested. Everything was Do you hate us? Which one of us do you hate the most? Which one of us do you want to kill? Do you want us out of here? And it's like, my God, come on. I mean, kids don't even play that way. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the thing that we have to learn is the spiritual realm has a lot of power. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I write about that in my books, and I write about the experience that I've had with that power. And so acknowledging that power, you acknowledge that the same way as you would if you knocked on Mike Tyson's door. If you went and knocked on Mike Tyson's door, you wouldn't go, hey, come out here and confront me. I want to talk to you. You'd get your teeth handed to you. So recognizing that the spiritual realm has this power, and I'm shocked that they don't actually hurt people or punish people or do something more often than what's alleged, given the way people interact. But realizing they have the potential to impact our physical realm so strongly, then the proper way to do anything, whether it's investigation, an approach to the other side for help or whatever, is to go in with respect.
Yep.
And go in with honesty in your heart and with respect. And like if you're doing a paranormal investigation, say, hey, I'm not here to aggravate anybody or to stir anything up or to cause any trouble. I'm here out of a curiosity. I want to know more about the other side. I want to know if there's anyone here that needs to tell me their story. What can I do to help you? What can you do to help me? Is there any way we can learn from each other and connect with this dimension for the common good somehow? Yeah. And that's the way you go into paranormal investigations, not cursing and yelling and trying to stir up stuff. And I get so disgusted at people. It's like they have a REM pod sitting there and they go, if there's a spirit here, can you activate the REM pod? And the REM pod goes off and they go, do it again, do it again, do it again. It's like, this is not a dancing bear over there obeying commands. This is an entity, a person, a being, a spirit with thought, will, volition, intellect. So on and so forth. So you have to understand.
It's almost like disbelief, right? It's the disbelief of this whole scenario, or some people's like, they don't even believe that this realm even exists. And I think a lot of what you're saying is like, hey guys, this is real, and you can work with it and have like a really fulfilling life once you harmonize in a way.
Exactly.
So John, can you break down the distinctions between ghost, angel, and like other spirits, or are they?
Well, we get there. I'll just simplify it. We get into a lot of division there because people love to label things.
I know, right?
And they love to imagine themselves in authority. How can you be an authority on a realm that's invisible? Okay, number one. And then they like to have read somebody's book that's supposedly an authority, and then they like to quote that. So they like to assume they know everything about everything. I was telling somebody the other day, there was a podcast I was on, and in the chat they were asking, why doesn't everybody become a ghost? And what they meant was, why doesn't everybody come back to haunt people or visit people or whatever? I said, well, everybody's a ghost. When you die, you're a ghost. Boom, that's it. You're on the other side. You're a quote unquote ghost. So, a ghost we typically assign as a person that was alive, and then they died, and then they hang around and haunt an area, visit an area for whatever reason. We typically say that's a ghost. An angel, we believe that to be an angelic being of some type, and it may not necessarily be a Christian angel. It could be an angel from some other belief system. It could be an angelic being that we would describe as an angelic being that's not affiliated with any religious belief system that we know of. They could just simply exist as that. Right. There are nature spirits that apparently are just attached to nature, that live in nature and have to do with nature and the rocks and the trees and the streams and all of these things. And then there are fairies, and I've seen one which blew my mind because I didn't really know if I believed in them or not till I saw one in the flesh. And
was it small? Was it actually tiny?
Oh, it was about 3 feet long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there are various spirits, various entities that we may not know exactly what are.
Yeah.
Because there's, in the spiritual realm, there are a lot of different beings. And some of these beings, these intelligences are not human. Yeah. And they may not be what we would call angelic or anything else. They may have a designation or a category that we don't know what the heck they are. Right. There's, in my life, the guardian angels, guides, and so on and so forth, all the spirit retinue that's around me since I was a child have stayed with me since I was a child. And a few new ones have come on every now and then. And some of them I kind of can recognize as maybe like a spirit guide or guardian angel in that context.
Sure.
Others, I couldn't describe them to you. I couldn't tell you who or what they are, other that they are a powerful and intelligent and knowledgeable being. And that's about all I get. And some of them don't give me any kind of name or description. They just say, John, we're here. And it's like, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. And then how do you distinguish or discern which one is benevolent and which one is malevolent?
Yeah. I think the easiest way to do that is, how do you distinguish between a bad and a good person? It depends on what the spirit tells you, how you're led, what advice they give you, what feelings they manifest or give you. And again, going back to all of my experiences, I haven't had any of those horribly malevolent experiences or any of these, things that other people claim to experience. As a matter of fact, in some of those cases, the majority of cases that I've investigated and been called to investigate, where people have supposedly experienced these things, a lot of things that have happened, it goes back to misinterpretation of an event that occurred, like the woman with a plate. So there wasn't anything malevolent there. There wasn't anything dangerous. It was just a misinterpretation of the event.
Got it.
A lot of times it translates into a person with mental illness of some type.
Yeah. They're
hallucinating or having this type of thing happen. And it could be a mild mental illness, but nonetheless, it's affected their judgment. They're perceiving this spiritual thing or whatever. People with various diseases, dementia, and so on and so forth, they will hallucinate things and hallucinate ghosts and spirits and all kinds of things that aren't necessarily happening. Sometimes I've been investigating things and it's been drug use or abuse, and the people are wired up and they're seeing stuff that's not there. So, a lot of that, you have to be very, very careful in proclaiming that a certain thing is going on when you go to investigate something, because there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that can make it not so.
Got it. So be very careful when labeling these types of things. You're bringing up something for me. Do you think that humanity kind of needs to reassess its relationship with death in a way?
Absolutely. Because, we have all these misconceptions, and even people in the psychic and paranormal, the spiritual community, have these misconceptions about death. One of the biggest ones is, well, we got to send them to the light. Well, you don't control what a person on the other side is doing. We don't close portals. We don't send spirits away. We don't exorcise things. Every exorcism I've seen made the situation worse, or at least didn't resolve it, but usually makes it worse. The people that proclaim they sent closed portals so no more spirits can come through or no more paranormal activity will occur, it still occurs. Sometimes it gets worse. Let's send them to the light. We were talking about this in a podcast the other day. The guy was talking about, he had been on a group that investigated the Queen Mary. And there's, I think it was like a little girl swimming pool supposed to be there, and all this, the little ghost girl or whatever. And he said, what's hilarious is that every group that goes in there and encounters the spirit sends them to the light. Yet the next group that comes through encounters the same spirit.
Better to the light.
So we have so much confusion and so much silliness and superstition about what occurs in our interaction with the invisible realm, with the other side, and with people that are dead, and with spirits on the other side.
So what's true for you? What's the afterlife all about?
I wish I knew.
I'm like, tell me.
Well, I wish somebody would tell me. We get these glimpses, we get these little hints, these bits and pieces, but I don't believe, in spite of some of these glowing accounts that have been written, that I've been reading about since I was a kid, I don't believe anybody really has a true knowledge and understanding of what the other side is like, and until we get there. And even if somebody had an honestly true experience where they died, they went to the other side and saw something and came back, that's like me going down the block to the grocery store and coming back. I haven't lived there. I was there and I saw, okay, well, they had a case of milk and they had some cigarettes and the candy thing. I think there were some comic books over there, and that doesn't describe the contents of the store and what it's like to be in that store every day.
Well, what's interesting, John, is so many people have very similar accounts. Yes. A lot of them see a tunnel. There's always some type of light. So yeah, I find that part really interesting, that there's so many similar accounts.
There are so many similarities there.
Yeah.
And we get the general idea from the abundance of those stories that, okay, maybe this is the way it is. Maybe this is the way you go over. But the problem there is, excuse me, maybe you only see that tunnel when you're going over there, but you're not staying over there and you're coming back, because all of these eyewitness accounts are people that have come back.
Came back. Good point.
So maybe that tunnel is just traveling to the other side where somebody meets you and says, hey, I love you, but it ain't your time. You got to go back. And you haven't gotten to the destination of what the other side is actually like. Maybe that's just a portal for your spirit and your consciousness to travel to kind of get this glimpse of things. And to be told, sorry, not your time, you got to go back. And then you go back through the chute. So maybe that's just a conveyance for those people that have had that experience and come back. Maybe when you're over there for good and you're not coming back, you don't have the tunnel experience. It could be something else entirely. We don't know.
Totally interesting. So do you use the terms spirit, consciousness, soul? Are they like synonymous? Like, do you just interchange them?
They're interchangeable. I think we put too fine a distinction on them. You know, we try and figure out what's a soul, what's a spirit, what's mind, what's consciousness, what's this, what's that.
Yeah.
And the problem with all of these things, and I've been telling this to everybody lately on my podcast, the problem with all of these things, we overthink things, we over spiritualize things, we over philosophize things. And what we wind up doing is getting into the same realm of when I was a teenager and we'd be driving around the car at night, running up and down the drag, and maybe we were a little buzzed, and we'd get in this conversation, which basically everybody on the planet said, hey man, like I look at this color red and I call it red and I see it as red. And you might look at this color and you call it red, but to you it looks green. But you call it red, even though it looks green to you, but it looks red to me. Like, hey, man. And yet you get off into that silly stuff that we used to when we were kids, thinking we were being philosophical.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's too much of that in the psychic, spiritual, and religious realms. And people expound on these things and go forever and a day. And, you know, that's great. But what does it do for you in the physical realm? You know, it's nice armchair quarterbacking, but what does it actually do for you in the physical realm? And my emphasis, my entire life has been these experiences occur to me on the physical realm. A lot of times witnessed by others. We have them on audio, video, photographs. And the point is, it's real in this dimension. This invisible realm interacts with this dimension. And the purpose of most of it seems to be, if we pay attention, to protect us, to guide us, to enrich our lives, to save our lives. Like I mentioned, the other side saved my life many times, literally. And so it has to be, let's make it practicable, let's make it workable. It has to be practical in the physical realm, because that's where we live. Now, you can meditate, you can envision things, you can visualize, you can do mantras, you can everything on the planet, but you still got to eat and you still got to drink or you're going to die. And you still got to get up and deal with your wife on who's going to pay the bills. I've got to run this errand, do this thing. The hot water heater is going to go out, tire's going to go flat out. We live in this physical realm. And you can spiritualize it all you want to and say, well, that flat tire on that car is just a mass of vibrating atoms and it's not even there. And if you well, fine, but guess what? Try and drive on it. It doesn't work. Okay. So take your vibrating atom theory along with you call it red too, but you see it as green and blah, blah. Take all that and just, you know, put it somewhere back there in the back to play with. And in the meantime, let's get on with the real business of we have physical bodies that need to be healed.
Yeah.
We need people that need to have a good connection with the spiritual realm, with the other side. How do we establish that in meaningful ways right here, right now? Because
But
we're
why?
hurting on this planet, you know?
Why? So what is the value? What is the benefit of making this connection, strong connection with the spiritual realm side, feeling, whatever you want to call it? What's the value of that in this here now, physical?
In the physical realm,
Yeah.
I'll give you one example of that. I'm riding my motorcycle up the interstate, and it's a nice, beautiful, sunny day, and I'm relaxed. And here in Florida, the 3 lanes of the interstate, you know, like everywhere, the right lane's the slow lane. You're supposed to go the speed limit.
Yeah.
Middle lane, you go a little faster, and the left lane is for the faster and the passing traffic and all that. Well, here in Florida, the right lane, where the speed limit's 70, people usually go 80, 85. The middle lane, people are 90 to 100. The left lane, people imagine they're in training for the Daytona 500. So now, I've been a biker since I was 15, and I have really superb, high speed riding skills. Okay.
Nice.
But this day, I'm just wanting to geezer along. It's a beautiful day, blue skies, sunshine. I'm going through this bucolic countryside, and I just wanted to go the speed limits. I'm going 65, 70, 65, 70. People are, little old ladies on tricycles are passing me and flipping me off. And it's like, I don't care, whatever. I'm enjoying my time.
Yeah.
And this voice in my head says, move into the left lane. And I'm like, guys, and after all these years, I still argue with them. I said, guys, I don't want to move into the left lane. I said, man, I'm having fun here. I'm just cruising along slow and easy. I'm in it. And they said, John, move into the left lane now.
Oh.
I'm like, okay, so I know better than to argue. So I do all the machinations that I have to do to get into the left lane. Now, it takes a lot longer for me to tell you about this than it did for it to actually happen, because it was just from the time they told me this till the second warning, and the event was split seconds. And after I got into the left lane, I'm like, okay, guys, here I am. What was all that about? Why am I here now? And about that time in the right lane where I had been, I don't know if somebody hit this guy hit somebody or what, but his car spun around in the lane where I'd been, facing the wrong way on the interstate.
Wow.
Detritus from the wreck was blowing across all 3 lanes like shrapnel. I mean, hubcaps, pieces of bumper coming, all this. I'm dodging all of that. And I look to see if I need to stop, but other cars are stopping. And like I say, 75 miles an hour, and people having to jam on their brakes because he's spun around and now facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
And so if I hadn't heard the voice of my guardian angels and listened to and obeyed that voice, I wouldn't be here to talk with you right now. I'd have been smashing into him as he spun around, and then no telling how many cars would have hit me before they got stopped. Wow. So that's one practical example of, hey, if you'll listen and do what this realm tells you, they can literally save your life.
Yeah. Because of the intelligence that flows, or maybe it's
all out there all the time if we'll listen to it. The problem is we don't listen to it. We pray.
We don't know how to listen.
Well, we do know how to listen, but we don't listen.
We don't listen.
We pray, we ask, we do this, we do that, and then what do?
The opposite.
We sit there with our cell phone like this all day with the earbuds in and music going and something over here and somebody talking and trying to read something on this computer screen while we're flipping on the phone. And we can't hear ourselves, much less the voice of guidance from the other side. And to hear that voice, it takes unplugging and getting quiet and listening. And then when you hear that voice, obeying that voice. Because I heard that voice that day, my life was saved because I acted on it. It wouldn't do any good to have heard it and then not to just stay in the right lane. Boom, I'm gone. But you have to unplug, you have to listen, and you have to act upon the guidance that you're given. And so it's not enough just, we ask all the time, God help me this, God help me this, God give me this, God give me that. But that's, what we have to do. We have to ask, but then we have to listen for that answer, and then we have to act on that answer. And the only way we can get that, the only way we can listen, is to shut up and unplug and get quiet. And that's how the other dimension interacts with us, is in that quiet.
Wow. Thank you. And you have thousands of these stories.
Yes.
Like different
Thousands.
thousands of these stories of this life-saving, life-altering
Things that
story.
have enhanced my life, improved my
Yeah.
life, given me healing, enabled me to help others, enabled me to guide others.
Yeah.
Just show me the fascination of this world and the fact that there are these other intelligences, these other
Yeah.
beings and entities that we can interact with. And it
Yeah.
opens your eyes to the fact that there's this whole other dimension out there, this whole other realm out there.
Yeah. So I've been on the path for the last like about 15 years. You've been on the path way longer than me.
Yeah.
Tell me something about it. Like, what can I look forward to? Does it get better? Does it just keep unfolding? Tell me about
It
the
keeps
path.
unfolding,
Yeah.
and it gets frustrating in the sense that, like I said, now I'm 68 and I have more questions than I have answers.
Oh
And
man.
I have a lot of answers now,
Yeah.
but I also have more questions than I have answers. And I
Wow.
think that one of the frustrations about the spiritual realm is that our learning is inhibited by the dogma, the tradition, the rituals that are out there, by politics, by the military, by this and by that. And a person on an individual quest can still accumulate a lot of knowledge and a lot of power, but we are social creatures. We're made that way. And we work better when we work together and when we focus our energy and power and work together. And what stops that, I'll give you an example. I write about that in my second book when I was growing up. When my mother was talking about that in the Sunday school, we began to say, well, meet at our house and we'll examine some of these techniques, some of these things that are going on that were happening in ESP and all these other things. Yeah. And what we did was we created this circle, this prayer group, whatever you want to call it. And the instruction for everyone there, like at the time, Eckankar was very popular. Inner Peace movement was very popular. Everybody taught their own techniques and their own methodologies of doing things. And so our approach was, if you have an Eckankar technique and that works for you, use it. If it's something from Inner Peace movement, use it. If it's something from Buddhism, use it. If it's something from Christianity, use it. If you like to pray, that's great. If you like to visualize, that's great. Whatever you feel like works for you. But don't expect everybody else to have to do that same thing. Yeah. You take what works for you, I'll take what works for me, and then let's focus all of our collective energies in our own individual way toward one specific thing. Like, let's heal Joe Blow. Yeah. And however you do it, if you pray, if you visualize, if you chant, if you use this technique, that technique, whatever, great. But that's what that technique needs to be focused towards. And we didn't have to do the same technique. I mean, the realm of spirit is smart enough to know, hey, I've got all these people gathered together focusing on this with all these different powers. That raises that energy and focuses that energy.
Yeah, I love
and
that.
It got results.
Yes.
But then the sad part of it is that somebody would read a book and say, oh, have you read this book? I think the group needs to use this technique or do this. And then somebody would come in with their ego in the way and they'd go, well, we always meet here. Why can't we meet at my house? Or why can't I lead a meeting or this and the other? So the egos got in the way, the dogma, the tradition, the ritual got in the way, the group disbanded. Right. And so you still have those problems and those things to get over.
Do you think one day that will all be eradicated?
God, I hope so. I think we're working toward it now more than we ever have. Because people are tired of it. They're tired of the dogma, and they're tired of the, well, you have to do it this way or it's not right or whatever. It's like people tell you have to hold a seance in the dark. No, you don't. I've held seances at 12 noon, on a sunny day and gotten results. Yeah. So there's all this dogma and things that you have to get past. And again, that goes back to when I was a kid. I wanted to find out what worked, what didn't. Get rid of what doesn't work, keep what does, keep learning as much as you can. But it's an ongoing process. And then what stymies that is trying to work together with other people and get togethers with others. So we have that unified power. Everybody wants to do it. Well, you're doing it wrong. It has to be like this. Or, well, I read so-and-so book and it said, no, it's da-da-da-da. And it's like, look, guys, let's get down to what works. And people had rather have their dogma than what works. Yeah. I remember I was invited to be on a pagan radio station one time.
Okay.
And they said, "Are you a pagan?" And I said, "I'm not a pagan, but I have ideas, ideologies that I embrace that are paganistic in nature." And then I went on to tell them of all these practical experiences I've had, real experiences, and the fact that over the years of my reading for my clients, my client feedback has said that my predictions were 80 to 90% accurate over all these years.
Mm.
Well, okay, but are you a pagan? I said, no, it's like, are you a Presbyterian? Are you a Baptist? Are you Catholic? Are you a pagan? I was like, no, I'm not a pagan. And they didn't want me on their show because I wasn't a pagan, even though I had more practical, real spiritual experience than any of them did, but I wasn't a pagan. So, you run into all of these difficulties. And then it's like with our government, they give us the dribby, drabby little 9-page UFO report, which did have a few neat gems in it. But, then they pull the wool over our eyes and, we're going to form a committee. Well, when the government says they're going to form a committee to investigate something, that means they're going to form a committee to think about forming a committee to maybe construct a committee to think about this committee. Mm-hmm. It means they're not going to do anything for 10 or 15 years is what it means.
Right.
And so we have all this, junk coming at us from the government where they won't disclose anything or be truthful. And there's just all these roadblocks in the way that you continue to encounter. And that's what you have to realize. It's like, okay, you have to keep pressing for the truth no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what. You just got to keep going.
Yeah. That's
and you will get answers. You will get helpful things.
Yeah.
You'll also see a lot of things that break your heart. Like I write about this instance. So we don't have time to really discuss it here, I don't think. But I write about this incident again in my second book when I was growing up. And one of the things I learned about people's affirmations and visualizations and prayers and all of that. And, the certainty of if two are gathered in my name, I'll do anything that they ask and all this. And watched all that come crumbling down in a heartbreaking way. And learning, the reality of the spiritual realm isn't exactly like we've been taught it is or believe it is.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think now, as more and more truth is being discovered and exposed, I think in this world, there's a lot of these teachers and gurus and spiritual leaders that people loved and followed, and that they are now turned out to be complete fraudsters and not who they said that they were. And people are devastated. And that's such a violation, right? When you give someone, that's a really tough one.
Well, you have all these phony psychics that take people for tens of thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
You have the phony evangelists on TV that are multimillionaires and their followers are living in poverty. You have all these supposed gurus and spiritual leaders, like you've said, that are full of total BS. Totally. And it's like, the spiritual gobbledygook that these people write, you can't understand it, much less apply it. It makes absolutely no sense. And then they look at you and say, well, you're just not ready, or you're not smart enough, or you're not spiritually evolved enough. It's like, come on, man.
Oh, but this is the path, right? The path of the seeker. You have to keep pressing on. You mentioned.
You're going to encounter all that junk.
All of it.
And you've got to have this spiritual compass, this moral compass, this ethical compass that says, okay, I'm going to find the truth. And that goes beyond personalities. It goes beyond people. It goes beyond movements, religions, everything else. And it goes beyond your comfort, because we like to champion people. We like to champion religions, and we like to champion books, and we like to champion spiritual leaders and this and the other. For some reason, it makes us feel good. We feel like we're aligning with the right thing or whatever. And you got to be willing to get rid of all of that, because when you find out that the guy with this spiritual following in this big farm where everybody lives and all this is driving his Rolls Royce past all the people laboring in his fields and laughing at him, you got to say, okay, I got to move on past that. I got to acknowledge that that's the reality. And I think people become afraid that if they come out and acknowledge and say, this evangelist is a phony, I'm turning away from that. or this psychic misled me, I'm turning away from that, or this so-called spiritual leader is a complete fraud and con artist, I'm turning away from that. I feel like they're afraid that when they turn away, uh-oh, what have I got? What is there, But that's part of seeking this truth, is finding out what is the truth out there and what is real out there. And you have to turn away from the frauds and the phonies to get to that point. You have to be willing to release that. Going back to the Indian client, this guy called me from India, and he said, John, he said, I have to ask you a question, man. He said, I know my religion doesn't work, but he said, I'm scared to death to let go of it. Why? And I said, well, for the simple reason that everyone is, regardless of what your religion is, you're taught from the time you were a child on up that there is a God, a being, a deity, whatever, or deities in that religion, that if you don't please them, you piss them off, you're going to go to hell, you're going to be separated, you're going to be reincarnated as a pig, you're going to be, you'll never see the face of God, you'll experience eternal, on and on and on and on. So there's all these punishments of some type related to displeasing the God of your religion. When you find out that religion doesn't work, you say, man, this is bunk, this just doesn't work, it's not real. Then, well, but is God going to kill me if I walk away? That's still stuck in our heads because it was pounded into us from when we were kids. And you have to come to the realization that, okay, if it doesn't work, then there's no workable God there behind this thing.
Right. And what does it working look like?
What does a working spiritual experience look like?
Yeah, because if the person is at the point of like, this is not working, so what does that look like? It working?
Well, then you have to start looking for the spiritual connection, the spiritual guidance that does work, that is real, that does make a positive impact in your life, and is something you can count on, to the greatest degree that you can. And I tell people the best way to look for that is to go straight to the other side, just whatever your concept of that is. Whatever your concept of a higher power, higher being, higher mind, God, whatever, and just approach that honestly and say, okay, look, I need help. I want to understand. I want to grow as much as I can. What do I need to learn? What can you show me? What do I need to be doing right now today? What do I need to be doing in the months and years to come? What's my purpose? And realize that not everybody is going to get this grand, huge, giant, noble purpose. Because if they did, our streets would be filthy because we would have no street cleaners. Our garbage would pile up because there'd be no garbage collectors. We can't all be the guy in the fancy suit flying around in the jet. There's got to be some people down here sweeping the streets. There has to be people selling us groceries. There has to be people, farming, providing food for
people
us.
People enjoy that, because
exactly.
I think,
and they have to understand that can be as high a calling as anything else.
Exactly. And so I think that's what it looks like when it works. You are in total joy and gratitude and excitement about
you found
life.
your niche. You found your niche.
Yeah,
it's like there's this old joke, and talking about that in this old joke, this farmer grows the absolute best corn of anybody on the planet. People rave over this in stores, and everybody can't wait to buy this corn. He just acres and acres and acres of this delicious, wonderful corn. Nobody grows corn as good as he did. But he just feels like that he's not got a purpose in life. He's not serving God. He hasn't found his calling. And so he goes and he sits out under a tree one day in this clear blue sky, and he's leaning back against this tree, looking up at the sky, and he says, God, he said, what am I supposed to be doing? And so these little clouds come up out of nowhere and begin to form letters, G, P, C. And he looks at that and he jumps up and he says, go preach Christ, go preach Christ. Yes, that's my purpose. That's my calling. So he leaves the farm, goes and begins to preach the gospel, holds these revival meetings. Everything's a flop. He goes broke. Not hardly anybody comes forward to be saved. Nobody reports any connection with Christ or any healings or any feeling of spiritual communion or success or anything. And he dejected, finally gives up, and he goes back to his dilapidated farm, and there's all his dead corn stalks in the field. And he's like, man, I just don't understand. I got the message. Says, well, why did it fail? And he trudges back out under the same tree, and he sits down, he looks up at the sky. Here come the little puffy white clouds again, GPC. But he didn't wait long enough, because then they begin to expand, and the message is go plant corn.
Corn.
That's your niche. That's your calling. That's your gift. Go plant corn. You have the best corn on the planet. Everybody raved over this corn. Go plant corn. So do what your gift is. And we're all, oh, I want to be a concert pianist, or I want to be this, or I want to be, well, not everybody is cut out to be that. We have to find our niche, and we have to travel in that and be as successful in that as we can. Be thankful that that's what we are and that's what we can do.
Yes, thank you. So we have to wrap up soon, but I would love for you to share about your book, writing, and all of that. And where can people find it and find you?
Yeah, if you want to find more about me, or schedule a reading, you can go to johnrussell.net, and that's my website for my psychic readings. Each book has its own website. The Writing with Ghost Angels and the Spirits of the Dead, you can just go to writingwithghosts.net. And then unknockintheattic.net. And those are available at all the major booksellers online. You can get them at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, a bunch of mom and pop bookstores, Abe Books, so on and so forth. So those are available everywhere. And people are going to read them and think, I have never read anything like this before in the realm of the psychic and the paranormal and spiritual. They are unique. And a lot of my readers have said that. So it'll be something you'll enjoy.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. And we're going to be seeing you again on our channel very soon.
Yes, yes.
I'm going to pull up so everyone can see we're going to be hosting a paranormal magic and ancient folklore conference that's going to be going on. So John,
that'll be July the 10th, and I'll be one of the presenters there. Yes.
Yeah. What are you going to be talking about? Do you know yet? Oh, did we lose John? Where did John go? His camera just cut out. Let's give him a second. Whoa, super interesting. I hope you guys are enjoying this conversation. There's a lot we spent. We got into the afterlife. We got into paranormal. We got into labels. That was one of the biggest things I'm going to take away from this conversation, is the fact that we love labeling things. And especially when it comes to the spiritual realm, because it's unseen, it's uncomfortable, and we're always trying to put a label on it so we can feel better about it. But by doing that, it's limiting and most times inaccurate. So perhaps when it comes to the spiritual realm or spirituality, it might be better to be a little bit more flexible. Perhaps, I'm not sure. Let's see. Where is he? John, are you still here? I don't know. His camera just kind of turned off. So like I said, guys, there's going to be a conference coming up on July 10th. It's a Sunday, and it's the Paranormal Magic and Ancient Folklore Conference. You can find that at portaltoascension.org. Get your tickets today. It starts at 10 a.m., goes all the way to 6 p.m. PST, and it should be very, very interesting. I'll be doing another interview tomorrow with a woman named Morgan, and we're going to be getting into fairies, and she's going to share a lot more there. And I'll try to do an Instagram story just to preempt that interview, but I think we're going to end it here. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. John, if you watch this back, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this interview and sharing so much of your knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Looking forward to seeing you at the conference and chatting again. Thank you guys all for watching. I'm Raji from House of Raji, and I'll see you next time.